Your Health 360 with Jacqueline Adebija.
All right, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the program, Your Health 360. It's Jacqueline Adebija. I'm in the house. I'm actually trying to connect with our resource persons this evening. They join us via Zoom, actually, or will be joining us via Zoom. So we're having some problems with the connection, and that's why you haven't heard from me. But we're still trying to do that. And please do stay. Just hold on. I know it's something that you'd love to hear, especially seeing as how it is a follow-up to one of the programs that we've had. And so I'll be right back. Do stay with us.
Your Health 360.
All right. Thank you for your patience. I hope that I live up to my promise. Like I said, something that you want to listen to. Now, for those who follow this program keenly, you would remember that about 3 weeks ago, I had someone come to talk to us about learning difficulties. And a lot of parents called in within the short space of time that they had. Parents called in and said, look, thank you for raising this awareness. But it's not just enough to raise awareness. It's also important that we look for a way out, that resources be provided. You remember that I told you that I would try to find out to see if I was a dyslexic or not. Well, I haven't been able to find that out properly, but I did go online and seems like I have some traits of it. But what do I know? There are experts in the building this evening. It's great when you get to find out that there are people listening and there are people who also want to help. And that is why it is with pleasure that I welcome people all the way from Lagos, actually, who heard the program. They heard that program and they were not happy that people in the north of Nigeria did not have resources, places where they could go to, if at all they noticed something like that in their children or in the child or in their any child, actually, that they're a guardian of, even if they're not parents of that person. And that's why it's with pleasure that I welcome Bolanle Segilola. Bolanle Segilola is an education leader of over 30 years. She's worked with the British Council on educational matters like this. She's actually a leader and a speaker, a policy writer. She's also a motivational speaker and a trainer. She has developed a functional observational tool that is used for determining the learning aptitude of an intended learner. Bolanle Segilola is also a mentor and a coach to many educators. And she's not alone. She is also here with Tosin Balogun, who is an occupational therapist. He's also a special needs interventionist and a program planner of over a decade. He is a registered behavior technician and a Teach Me language specialist. Tosin is passionate about the use of appropriate curriculum and employing creative teaching styles for children with special needs. Allow me welcome Bolanle and Tosin, if you'd permit me to call you by your first names, to welcome them today to Your Health 360. They're actually a team of, I hear, over 10 people who work together. Based in Lagos. They go all around the world. They go all around the world, and they've been working with schools and parents, especially for special needs children. And so let me welcome you formally, Bolanle and Tosin, to our program today in Kaduna. You're both welcome. I hope you can hear me.
Thank you very much, Jacqueline.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much for having me on the program.
Okay, I wanted
I'd
us
like
to
to quickly.
right. I wanted us to speak via Zoom so that we'd be able to have this up on our YouTube channel for parents to go and listen to later on. But I think our technician wisdom, if you could just take a Snapchat, a screen grab. Take a screen grab of us right now, and then let's go back to just the phone lines so that there will be the picture up, and people can just follow the audio because valuable time is being spent, and we haven't been able to really speak about these issues. So, if you would permit me, our listeners, that is, I would just quickly go and call them via audio so that we can get the important stuff right off the ground this evening, especially for parents who were listening that day. It's an important resource that we're about to talk about this evening. So do stay with us. I'll be right back. My apologies.
Your Health 360, only on Invicta 98.9 FM with Jacqueline Adebija.
All right, people. Finally, I got them via phone. You'll be able to see them on YouTube later. You can listen to this program later, but I really do apologize. Sometimes everything that can go wrong actually does, but you need to learn how to roll with it. And so let me once again welcome Bolanle Segilola and Mr. Tosin Balogun. Incidentally, Bolanle is actually a former schoolmate, and she listened to that program. Incidentally, we reached out to each other later, and that's how we have these people from Lagos. Bolanle, it's great to have you in the studio with us, at least via phone, and Mr. Tosin Balogun. Bolanle, an educator of over 30 years, and also, of course, Mr. Tosin Balogun, who has been working with her and some other people with especially special needs children for some time now. Mr. Tosin has over 10 years of experience with this. So I welcome both of you from the city of Lagos to Kaduna. You're welcome.
Thank you.
Great to have you with
Thank
us.
you very much, Jacqueline.
It's great to have
very
you.
great to be in Kaduna from Lagos.
Yes, virtually, right? Unfortunately, we don't really have time. I'm so sorry about this, but like we're Nigerians, we learn to roll with the punches. And so I'm just going to jump into it. You heard a program about, the fact that a lot of learning difficulties, a lot of information surrounding learning difficulties are still new to quite a number of parents, especially up north, in Kaduna at least. And a lot of parents did call in that day. They were concerned about some of the things that we had talked about. We actually talked about dyslexia, dysgraphia, dyscalculia. We talked about several things. And, let's just say that you heard, and this is something that you've been working with in Lagos. So let me quickly ask Bolanle Segilola what your experience has been and what resources are available. I'm just jumping into it quickly because we really do not have time. So I need for the people to hear you as much as possible. What has your experience been in all this time as regards the incidents of learning difficulties in Nigeria among students in Nigeria, and what resources are available?
Okay. Thank you so much, Jacqueline. Thank you once again for having me on the program. First of all, Jacqueline, I'd like to come in section. I did not work with British Council, but I worked with schools who partnered with British Council and have done that all my life.
All right.
So thank you. Now back to your question speaking. Yes, the experience with we don't call them special needs, first of all. We call them children who learn differently. And first of all, that is to alienate, that take away the stigma that may come, so that while we're teaching them, they don't feel stigmatized and they don't feel different from the other children. Now, the experience has been, it's professionally and technically speaking, it's been quite challenging. If you see me while working, you won't believe this is me. But what gives us joy is the outcome. For 1 second, we don't take our eyes, we don't blink when we're with them. Because every action they take counts for us in the industry. Every new new achievement. It's a milestone that we celebrate. So it's been professionally hectic, but very rewarding when we see the achievement that the children make. That yes, there are resources available, and with time, as you mentioned the case, we probably will mention each resources that are available for each case, and that will do the trick. Thank you.
All right, great. Let's hear from Mr. Tosin Balogun, at least, to get a feel of what your work has been like regarding, I like something that Bolanle said. She said they don't call them special needs children because of the stigma already attached to all of that. They call them children who learn differently. And indeed, we were told about 3 weeks ago that children who are dyslexic actually see letters differently. Children who have dyscalculia actually see the numbers differently. And of course, on and on it goes, dysgraphia, and all of that. We're still going to come back to those definitions, but what has your experience in the field been? Because many times Nigerians say, these things are Oyinbo-ish. They're not things to be found in our climes. So I'm asking, what has your experience been meeting children who learn differently?
Thank you very much. So, trying not to repeat the same thing that Mrs. Bolanle has said, I would just say that personally for me, I think the major challenge has been a lot of underdiagnosis. So, even though we are saying this is legal, there's a lot that is being known and all of that, but there's a lot of underdiagnosis when it comes to needs like dyslexia, dysgraphia, dyscalculia. A lot of things has been said about autism or ADHD or cerebral palsy and the like, but when it really comes to specific learning disabilities or specific learning difficulties, there is a lot of underdiagnosis. In fact, you could have a child being referred to you for a totally different diagnosis, and then you still find out that this particular child is dyslexic or has got some form of dyscalculia and all of that. So my experience really has been, trying to make people see that there is a lot more beyond autism and cerebral palsy. People do have dyslexia, people do have dyscalculia, and all of them can be helped. All of them can achieve what they really can. Perhaps the most interesting thing about dyslexia and the like is that many of them have the very regular level of intelligence. So, it's just a matter of what tweaks, what support can you provide to make these people achieve the best they can.
As a matter of fact, we hear that most of them have more than average IQ, that's intelligence quotient. It's actually even higher than what we would expect. Now, coming back to Bolanle Segilola, how do you diagnose? Is it something that you could quickly walk us through, or is it more complex than what you could explain over radio?
Okay, the diagnosis, it does not lie with us. First of all, it doesn't lie with the educator.
Okay, so that's why you work as a team.
Yeah, that's why we work in team. When they come to class, we see them because of our experience with the learning teaching procedure. We see the way they learn. We already understand that, okay, this child might be learning differently. So what we do is we give recommendations to the parents, and we do a referral. We can say, go to so and so for a proper clinical assessment. Now, why do we need a clinical assessment? It is a medical procedure, and the clinical psychologist will know exactly what to check. Now, when that report gets back to us, we will read the report, we will study the report, and what we do with the report is provide academic intervention. What I mean by academic intervention is we already have our scheme in place. So we're going to look at topics and methods teaching method that will be applicable for that child to learn. And in most cases, it's a creative teaching method. It's something that it's not stereotyped. We don't do stereotype teaching with them. We allow them own their own lessons. They take lead of their own lessons. But what we do is we guide their learning and we work with them. So I'm going to leave this half of the question to Tosin because he is more a professional in the field of diagnosis. He can tell us more about diagnosis. But that's what lies with the educator, which is my responsibility.
All right.
Thank
So, Mr. Tosin Balogun, you go ahead. What's diagnosis like for you as someone who's seen this?
Okay.
Yeah, what's it like?
So I think, of course, the answer that she's given is actually the correct thing. The diagnosis lies in the hands of, mostly the clinical psychologist and sometimes educational psychologists as well can make the diagnosis. But then I should add that there are a few other things that can be done by class teachers as well. Because there are a number of screening tools. Probably the first thing that a teacher would see would be perhaps that the child is maybe the child can't read properly, or the child is trying to reverse some letters and all of that. If they make that known to the professionals, the first thing they usually want to do is to probably give them a screening tool, just take a few boxes and all of that. When that screening tool is being examined and then they see that the child may be at risk of dyslexia, then that's when they then go for a formal diagnosis, and then a number of questions and tests and all of that is administered to the child before they can make a full diagnosis of dyslexia or dysgraphia or dyscalculia.
All right. So I do understand that all of you work as a team. My question now would be, I know you have a clinical psychologist
Right.
amongst your team. Have you ever been with him while he's diagnosing any one of your patients or children, all these people that come to you, or the children who come to you actually? Have you ever been there? Is it more complex? Is it just reading assignments that they give these children, or reading exercises that they give the children, or is there more that they do?
Okay, yes, of course. I think that's been part of different aspects. Part of different assessments over the years and all of that. And if you're asking specifically about dyslexia, of course, even though it's a language-based disorder, it doesn't mean that the only thing you're going to have the child to do is just to read and write and things like that. Because when you look at the diagnosis and the specific kind of symptoms that you expect in a child in dyslexia, some of them could be psychological, some of them could be motor-based. So you're going to have to access the handwriting, and not just in terms of whether the child is trying to reverse the letter or not. You're looking at the letter formation. You're looking at the grip of the child when the child is trying to write. You're looking at how organized is the child. Is the child able to sequence a story, sequence a paragraph? There are a lot of things to consider beyond just the text. You also have to look at how the child is writing, how is the sitting posture as well for the child. You have to look at the vision as well. Is the child can the child actually focus on what the child is meant to write and be able to produce that? Some children have what you call the left and right discrimination. Sometimes they are writing from one end of the book as opposed to covering the whole length of a page of a book, for instance. So there are many more things you have to consider beyond just reading text.
Okay, let me come back to Bola and ask, what then is the next step for a parent who is worried that their child is not keeping up pace as they would have, or how they remembered that other children that they had kept pace?
Okay. Like we said, the first thing, of course, is to get a clinical check, diagnosis, further to, let me just speak as a psychologist now, education psychologist, and a teacher. I'm in the class, and I discovered that this child is not learning as he or she should, the first thing I do is to get the parents informed and advise that they go get a clinical check. Now, clinical report comes back to me as the education psychologist, and then I do a study of that report. So from there, like I said, I will now be able to, draw up a special program. We call it individual education plan. That's what, when you say IEP, that's what it means. Now we draw up that special program. We draw that program up for a period, and that child, we use that program to teach the child for a period. Our kind of teaching with them is collaborative. It's usually done in partnership with the parents and with the community, wherever they would want to be. So we watch them at home. We watch them in school. We watch them at the center if they go to a dyslexic foundation center or any other center. We watch them, and they give us feedback on progress. Now, another thing we do with them is we tell them the academic program that we're running with them, and then they tell us, of course, the plan. Like Sophie said, it's not just academic; it's psychological. It's psychological, it's social based, it's emotional based. We put all those things together, and that is how we teach them. Of course, during the course of teaching, they are being assessed. It's not like we're just going to be teaching them. There is assessment, and they get scored for those assessments. They get celebrated for every milestone achievement. And what I mean by milestone achievement is maybe if there's something that they find difficult that they're not doing. For instance, I had a PT student sometime few months back, and the PT student couldn't pronounce. I mean, it was a speech defect student, and the day she was able to say "strong guy," it was a big deal. It was a big thing for us. So I did that assessment because it took her a lot of effort to say that word, because that was a challenge to her. And she said it, and that was it was called. It was called as able to say "strong guy," and that mark was given to her, and she was celebrated. So that's a typical example of how they learn. That's a specific example of how they learn.
Okay.
And it's very exciting when you're with them.
Right. So here we are in Kaduna State. The doctor actually promised to get back to me on where parents who need for their children to get tested should go. He hasn't gotten back to me yet. Probably I should have reached out too. But when a parent who has listened to the prior program and is listening now has come to the conclusion that, look, I think my child needs to be seen. For my child to go something, it's not enough just to have that awareness, but what do I do with that child after my worry, or after I am now aware that it's not because this child doesn't want to read, or because this child is not concentrating, that's why their writing is bad, or that's why they cannot read, or that's why they cannot calculate. What can a parent do, especially a parent in a place like Kaduna, that where the resources are either not obvious, we do have them but they're not obvious, or they're non-existent? What should parents do? Bola. Okay, I was actually asking for Bola to answer that, but Mr. Tosin, if you want to dive in, go straight ahead.
Okay, I was also going to say that, I can answer the questions first. To talk about things that we have in existence in Lagos and all of that. But since we're talking about Kaduna, and this is not something I'm very much aware of, but I think the very first place to start is to know that there is a kind of a support group for people or families of people with dyslexia. Where I know that there is the Dyslexia Foundation, and even though I know that they are officially based in Lagos, it's a good place to start for you to reach out.
Let me quickly ask you, Mr. Tosin, do you have contact with the Dyslexic Association of Nigeria? Could you ask them for us after this program if they have a chapter in Kaduna? It would be great to to find out if they do have a chapter in Kaduna. That would be great to find out.
Okay, that's what I'm
no. Yeah, that's cool. One of our partners, one of the partners we work with, actually has a foundation that we could link up. We link Kaduna, link him up with Kaduna if he's not already in Kaduna. So that's what we can do. Like I said, we work in group. We don't work alone.
Right.
So that's it's doable.
Okay, like I said, we spent so much time trying to connect to you. I would like to, get the feel of those listening. They might have one or two questions before we start to talk about where they could go, because sincerely, my hope has been right from when we had that program that we can trigger something that is going to modify what we have in our schools in Kaduna State right now, for us to have tools in schools, whether public or private, that can identify children who actually learn differently. Like you said in the beginning, children who learn differently, buy them and help them as quickly as possible. That's been my hope, and I have not given up on that just yet. But let's hear from the parents who hopefully are listening at this time. And the numbers are 081 40,000 989 and 070 800 989. Once again, those numbers are 081 40,000 989 and 070 800 989. Let's go take the first call. Hello, good evening.
Hello, good evening. How are you?
You're welcome, sir. Go ahead. You're welcome, sir. You step away from your radio set a bit, please.
Okay.
All right, go ahead.
The problem is because frankly, we no longer have teachers in our private and public schools. Because what we have core teachers are not over here. Remember, state kids, they don't even need to use the
Your line isn't hello, sir. Your line isn't clear. I'll have to ask that you call back. It's unfortunate that we couldn't get I don't know what's wrong with the network today, but please do try to get us back right away, because we don't have much time. All right, I see calls bumping themselves up. Keep trying, and let's take as many calls as we can. Good evening.
Hello, good evening.
You're welcome, ma'am. Go ahead.
You are speaking with Mama Mustafa from our Western City.
Mama Mustafa, it's good to have you. Go ahead.
Please, I just want to ask a question.
Go ahead.
For a child that is too playful, what can we do to help the child?
What do you mean by the child is too playful? I can hear you, Mama Mustafa.
Yes, for a child that is always play in the class or anywhere, anything you ask the child to do, he will play. What can we do to help the child, please?
So we might be looking at the attention span of that child, right? If you give him something or give her something to do, she or he quickly forgets about that thing and starts to play, goes on to something else, right? Yes. Okay. I'm sure they will answer that question. Thank you so much for calling in, Mama Mustafa. Still taking your calls. Let's take as many calls as we can because I'm trying to manage the time. Once again, my apologies, but indeed it was beyond my control. Still taking your questions this evening, but let me quickly, while we wait for other calls, let me quickly ask that any one of you, Ms. Satosi or Ms. Or Bola, who would want to answer that question? I think we're looking at attention deficit here, talking about a child that is too playful. You know, you tell the child to do something and the child goes on to do something else before you know what is happening.
Okay. What she will do is you need to keep the child occupied, and it's not just keeping the child occupied without a purpose. The child needs to be given a purpose. The child needs to know why he or she is doing what he or she has been asked to do. And the child needs to be given a time to do it and do it appropriately. Because if you just say, okay, go and read your book, the child is just going to sit there and do a rush work and come back to you to say, I'm done. And then you'll be looking for another child. You must, for such children, they're usually in two categories. It's either they are very smart, they are gifted, and they are very smart, and they're able to do their work as quickly as they can and even do it well, or they're not. So for every activity that such children are given, there has to be an attached purpose for that. And you have to give them timeline that, okay, do it within this time and get another set of activities ready for them.
So, for instance, Bola, you tell a child who has that attention deficit, the child is too playful. You tell them, okay, I want you to finish chapter 1 before 1 o'clock. What do you do if that child does not meet that goal? Do you beat the child? Or, what are some practical things you can do to such a child?
No, usually for attention deficit, number one, they won't finish it and they jump into something else. So what you do with them is you have a book for them to read. You just don't give them the book to read. You need to attach an activity with the chapter they're reading. Usually they're asked to role play. They have to think out the role of the character that they want to play. And they need to think out how that character comes to them. And that's why we call their activity guided. You don't leave them. You really need to guide it. So you tell them, okay, in chapter 1, who is this person? Okay, how do you think this person is represented in the story? What do you think? So for every question, every activity, you're there. You're there. You can't leave them. You must make them achieve, except of course when the activity is over, both in school, at the center, and in the house.
So I know that in a place like Lagos State, there are moves.
For me to say something about that,
okay.
About ADHD and all that. Okay, yes.
Yeah, go ahead, Tosin. We've run out of time actually, so you have just about a minute.
All right, that's fine. So I to what she said, that the important thing again to try to consider is what you call the concept of reinforcement. So there's a lot of things about the culture, about parents and families and what you just want the child to do. But you have to tie the things that the child can do or the things that the child has done to certain levels of reinforcement, because that is what is going to increase the likelihood that the child will do it. So if you give a child something to do and you want the child to do like 1 to 10, because the child doesn't have a lot of attention span like hypnosis, so you can decide, okay, for now I'm going to break the task into chunks. So for now, you're just going to do 1 to 2 or 1 to 4. And if you're able to do this is what you get. Something that you know the child enjoys. Something like a toy or just a few minutes of playtime. And then you can go back to the next one. By so doing, you're going to gradually be increasing the child's attention span and the willingness to complete the task that you've given them to do.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Tosin Balogun. We've run out of time, and I do know that this is really unsatisfactory for a number of people. I'm not satisfied myself. So here is there's a blessing in everything. So here is what I feel we should do. I would really appreciate if you could do some more research on Kaduna State, both of you or your team. If you could do some more research on Kaduna State, what is available right here? And I promise to use, the week, to actually also go out of my way to try to find out. The truth is, I don't even know in what direction to go. As is, I might just go to our neuropsychiatric hospital. Right now, that's the only place that comes to mind for me to go and find out what resources are in place, and will also reach out to the Ministry of Education in Kaduna State and find out if we even have thoughts as to updating our curriculum and ensuring that children who learn differently are carried along in our classes, whether it be public or private schools, that there be provisions or tools to help these children. So hopefully we will have you back next week, or the one after that is in this coming Friday, or the one after it, depending on what we can find out in the time that we have. So I'd like to thank Bolanle Segilola and Mr. Tosin Balogun for coming in this evening on this program, and once again apologize, even though it was beyond me, what the network did to us. But we do appreciate the few minutes that we've had with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jacqueline.
All right, please. Yeah, please. It was a pleasure. Please go on and help us find out from Lagos if there are hands or legs on the ground in Kaduna State as regards children who learn differently. Bola, I'm going to be holding on to you for that. I'm going to be holding on to you.
I'm just going to let you know that dyslexia is not the only case we have here.
Okay.
Yes, we will do dyslexia, but there are other cases that we will be carrying along.
No, of course. It's just like you said, children who learn differently. Please go ahead and find out whatever it is, be it dysgraphia. The lady who just called, it wasn't dyslexia. She was talking about attention deficit, So please just take a look at all learning difficulties, what we have on ground in Kaduna State, people who have legs on ground or eyes on ground in Kaduna State. What is going on? There might be things happening in Kaduna, but we don't know about it just yet. So let's go do that research, please, and then let's get back to the people.
Okay.
All right.
All right. No problem.
All right. Thank you so much. Do have a blessed weekend. Thank you. All right. Okay, so that was Bolanle Segilola and Mr. Tosin Balogun, educators who have made it their life's work to work with children with special needs, and also children who learn differently, as I'm sure you heard. And this is my promise that I will bring them back. I did say to you the last time we had this program that I would even find out about myself, because please do not forget that it's also something that is hereditary and it is not solved by beating. Many of us just lived with it and grew up with it. But with time should come more information, and with more information, of course, we must modify the way we teach our children. And so, yes, this is a story that continues. It is a program that continues. Maybe not next week. Like I said, give us time to find out what's going on, but you can be sure that I will bring you the results after today, God willing. All right. So thank you so much for tuning in to your Health 360. Keep staying with us here at Invicta. You do know that right after, we're still on the Gadagi Gidiga belt, and you'll be hearing from Imak, JC, MC Particles, and the rest of the boys very soon. Stay with us right here on 98.9. Have a blessed weekend.